Okay, guys, we're live. I know you guys have been waiting for us for a while. We appreciate the feedback, but we are the AFC North Talk YouTube channel. I myself, Ace Boogie, my man Sonny, SZG Sports represents the Ravens. Tony Sereno represents the Steelers from Locked On Steelers. We are also waiting for our man Quincy to join us,
Of course.
the amazing Browns fan that you guys love to troll all of the time. But what we want to do is we kind of want to talk about a lot of things that have happened since our last show. So, as you guys know, our last show, I believe, was us kind of wrapping up the schedule and things of that nature. And a lot of stuff has happened. For me, mainly, I would probably say the Cam Newton signing with the Patriots. We were kind of talking on this show last time. Was he going to join the Steelers or some teams? It was actually interesting. We saw that the only other team he spoke to was the Browns. So we definitely want to touch on that. The Browns, for some reason, were rejected. It seems like
That's twice now. Clowney and Newton. Yeah.
Clowney and Newton, it seems like. So seems like they've had a bit of rejections, but they've also had some good news too. So we'll want to catch up with them. But also the big bombshell dropped today with Pat Mahomes signing that extension. If I'm not mistaken, the number just keeps going up. I've heard 400 million. Now I think it's at 500 million.
It'll be $1 billion by the time we finish today's.
Yeah, it's like $500 million for 10 years. So we're definitely going to have to talk about that. And then we'll get into our individual teams and some of the recent news and topics that we've heard from our respective teams and kind of discuss them there. And then, of course, we want to hear from you guys in the comments. So definitely, if you want some things heard, definitely be sure to push them there. But first, let's talk about Cam Newton. So, the dominoes all kind of fell. This was something that was whispered at the time where people were like, okay, well, what happens if the Patriots get rid of Tom Brady and sign Cam Newton? I personally didn't think it was going to happen at the time, just from a mathematics standpoint. Now, we all know that Cam Newton ended up signing for pennies on the dollar. But at the time, I just thought that was the reason why the Bengals weren't able to trade Andy Dalton there. And that was the reason why they didn't sign Cam Newton. Well, the chips have fell, and we all knew that Jarrett Stidham was not going to be an answer. I think we could definitively say he was not going to be the guy. So Cam Newton signs with the Patriots for pennies on the dollar for one season.
Yeah.
Tony, what are your thoughts on this move?
Well, first of all, just as a hater of the Patriots, I just wanted to just one time in my life watch this team have a losing. I think the last time they had a losing season was 2000 and maybe it was just 2000 actually. I think it was 2000 the last time they had a losing season. So it's been a while, right? And so, watching them go through this offseason where, look, in the draft, I think they had a decent draft, but they certainly didn't have a draft that helped them a lot in 2020. And they didn't add a quarterback at all. So, it looked like they were going to go into the season with Jarrett Stidham. And I think, as much hype as there could have been about Stidham, everybody knew, like, this guy is not going to come in and replace Tom Brady. He's certainly not going to help what was a really stagnant offense for large parts of 2019, turn a corner in 2020. So it seemed like even if the Patriots were going to have a down, still have a chance in the AFC North, they were going to have a down year. Now with Cam Newton back, it just feels like this is going to be, your classic Patriots. Look, this is a team that I believe went 11-5 with Matt Castle as their quarterback. Right. So Cam Newton, and I know he's got injury concerns, but he's going to add an extra dimension to that offense that they didn't have before, right? Tom Brady, not known as a runner, not going to win yards with his legs. Cam Newton's going to do that for Belichick. He's certainly, I think, look, at this point in his career, a more talented quarterback than Tom Brady. It's just athletically speaking. Right? I mean, Tom Brady's 42 years old, so. He's going to bring some tools to the table. That offense needs to get better. I know that they don't have a ton surrounding Cam Newton, but that defense was very good in 2019, if a bit overrated because of how easy their schedule was early on. So I'm saddened that Cam Newton went to the Patriots because I was looking forward to laughing at the Patriots on a weekly basis. And now, while I don't know that they're a true contender in the AFC, they're going to be a playoff team. And anytime you get Belichick in the playoffs, you have to be worried as a team in the AFC.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Sonny, let's get your take. Then we'll go into mine, and then we'll bring in Quincy to get his take on Cam Newton to the Patriots.
So it's funny because they heard, and we're gonna discuss about it later. They were like, okay, the Sanchez are coming today. Cam, now come, we'll sign you. Just like that. Yeah. We need to squash this news. Come. I mean, the Sanchez can Newton signing, so we just Like it was like a whisper to Sanchez, and boom, everybody went crazy with Cam Newton. Cam Newton to the Patriots made too much sense in my opinion because Stidham is an enigma. I mean, I have Boston's fans, and shout out to them that DM me like, "Oh, we before Cam Newton, oh, we're gonna be good. Stid is the guy. Stid is gonna kill us. Stid is gonna be the next Tom Brady for the next decade." I'm like, have you seen this dude play? Because I haven't. I mean, I went back
I saw him at Auburn.
Yeah, I was gonna say I went back and watched him, and I was like, this dude, this is the guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm telling you, so. There's a problem though with the Cam Newton signing and it will be a theme for me with the players now voting for no preseason games. Currently, we are down to 2 preseason games, no OTAs, new system for Cam Newton. How quickly he adjusts. Every team that has big changing parts is, in my opinion, is going to struggle at the beginning. So because of that, we might not even see Cam Newton maybe start at the beginning, which I mean. Again, then people can see how, in my opinion, garbage Stidham is. But even if he starts, I think everything is going to be very simplified. Not because Cam Newton is not talented, it's just because everything's going to get packed in. Everything is going to get crushed in. So, I don't know, man. I think it's interesting. I like the signing for the Patriots. I thought the Patriots was going to be trash, garbage this year. I think now with Cam, I think at least they're a 500 team. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're definitely were counted out at least before Cam Newton. I think that this is an amazing move for both sides. And the reason that I feel like that is, number one, you're getting a former MVP that's hungry, that's been humbled, that's been a guy that's been counted out. So he's going to be motivated to come in and do whatever it takes. Number two, he's going to a situation where this is probably the best team that he's been on. Right, because the Carolina Panthers, although they did go to the Super Bowl and all of that, they've been a team that has heavily relied on Cam. It's like when you take Cam away from them, they just collapse because everything is about him, and they've kind of dictated what kind of weapons are around him. They haven't given him some pieces on the offensive line at some time, so it's really just all been built around Cam. Now he's stepping into a team that has, one of the greatest coaches in history in Bill Belichick. He's got an offensive mind and guru in Josh McDaniels. He's got a way better defense than, well, that's not to say that the Panthers defense has been bad, but he's got one of the best defenses in the NFL. And it's just a great situation for him to come in. I think Tony said it. Matt Castle won, 10 to 11 games with this team. What do you think Cam Newton's going to do? This is a guy that was MVP a few years ago. The thing that I think people forget about, and the thing that I forgot about at first was, how is he going to fit in the Patriots system? Well, think about what Josh McDaniels did with Tim Tebow, and now realize that he's going to have Cam Newton to get that actual offense that he wanted all those years ago. So Josh McDaniels is actually the perfect guy to take in Cam Newton because that was his vision with Tim Tebow, and now he's got Cam Newton to do it. But I think that this was also better for Cam as well because it just took him down a notch. He kind of was a guy that was very opinionated. He kind of rubbed a lot of guys the wrong way on his team. But I think that this is the perfect situation for him to be in with a guy like Belichick that's not really going to take any of that. And it's going to be about winning first and putting that first and paramount. I think that this, to me, signifies that they are going to be a threat to the Bills in the AFC East. It's hard for me to really take the AFC East or the Bills seriously in the AFC East, even though they've been good, especially with Josh Allen, especially with that defense. I just can never count Belichick out. And now that they've added Cam Newton there, I just really can't do it. To me, the only team that's really shown a consistency to be able to beat them, ironically, has been the Miami Dolphins. For some reason, the Dolphins just tend to beat them, but no one else has. And so when you look at the Patriots, you look at their history, they normally average 10 games, 10 wins a season. So I think that we're going to see the same here. And it's going to be very interesting because Cam's on a prove-it deal for 1 year. And I think it's a win-win for both sides. If it doesn't work out, they put Stidham in, they tank and do whatever they do. If they don't, Cam Newton, they get him for pennies, especially considering how much you would have to pay someone like Cam Newton to play. So I think it's a win-win for both sides. But with that being said, let's bring in my man Quincy for his take on Cam Newton to the Patriots.
Yeah, so as interesting as some of the rhetoric has been about Cam Newton and some of the questions have been about will Cam Newton fit onto this Bill Belichick offense, I actually think the least interesting part of this is actually what's going to happen on the field. What's happening on the field is Bill Belichick just got a former MVP, a 6'6", 240-pound, one of the most athletic men to ever play quarterback in NFL history. That's the part that makes a ton of sense. What people are going to fixate on is how different these two individuals are off the field. And they are very different about how they carry themselves. But when it comes to work, Cam Newton has had a lot of things laid on him and a lot of negative things pushed on him. But lazy is not one of those things I think has ever been credibly put on his name. You look at what he did at junior college when barely anybody was watching. You look what he did at Auburn when nobody really knew who he was until he made them know. And then you look what he did 7 years in Carolina. Those are formidable years. So it's going to be interesting to see what this all shakes out to, how much Cam has left in the tank. But let's be honest here. The New England Patriots are going to try to run the ball and play a ton of defense this year. And there's not a quarterback in the NFL. There's not many other quarterbacks in the NFL you want in that kind of a situation. And Cam Newton, just look at how he made the Super Bowl with the Panthers. He had Ted Ginn on that offense. He didn't have a great offense around him, but what he did have was a great defense that helped him. And when you have Cam Newton, you're able to do things. You're able to get 4th and 1s. You're able to run the ball a little bit more effectively. And that's going to be all the things that are going to make sense for Bill Belichick in this offense. And quite honestly, I'm surprised that people let this happen for free, essentially for free. They just let this. Everybody was worried about him tanking for Trevor Lawrence, that nobody saw that Cam Newton was available for free.
Yeah,
right. Basically, a bag of chips.
It's a good point about the idea that they're going to want to come in and just run the ball and play defense, because that was the game plan. It seemed like for the Patriots early on in 2019, and then Pat Devlin got hurt, and that kind of threw a wrench in the whole plan, and they had to readjust. They ended up signing AB, and that lasted for a week. So I think you're right. I think that is going to be the plan, and it's going to take some of the pressure off of Cam Newton. I think you look at what the Ravens did. I think Belichick looked at that and said, "Hey, maybe I can make some of that work with Cam Newton." Not to say Cam is on Lamar's level. I'm not, Sonny. I'm not trying to say that, right? I mean, Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson.
What I was going to bring was more than, I don't know if Cam wants to do that either. Right, because Cam has a toll in his body, I think, and now he wants to be more. He wants to extend his career as much as he can. Yeah, and that's the reality.
Especially on a one-year prove-it deal. It's a good point, actually.
Exactly. So I think he will run, but he will pick and choose his spots where he's gonna run, and I think he wants to showcase that he can still be a good throw of the ball. If anything, what he needs to work is pocket presses and how to move around the pocket, not like Brady did, but like. Pockets is collapsing because the O-line in New England is okay. How to move outside the pocket because he's athletic enough and make that throw on the run. The problem with the Patriots is who is their talent on the receiving core. I love N'Keal Harry coming out of college. He was injured last year. Mohamed Sanu went there and wasn't great. And then we had the little dude. Oh man, I'm blanking his name.
Julian Edelman. Yeah. I think that's a point that many people have made. But you could look at the year that he went to the Super Bowl and say, was Philly Brown really that good? Was Ted Ginn really that good? He didn't have none of those guys are even on the level of Mohamed Sanu, let alone Julian Edelman. So I agree with you.
My boy there. My boy was there. Smith.
Who? Steve Smith was not there. No, he was not there.
He was at
that point. If you're Cam Newton. And if you're Cam Newton, let's just look at 2018 before he got hurt. He was throwing 67%, had 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and name me a wide receiver that's on that roster right now. There's nobody really there. So, the idea that he's going to struggle with the lack of weapons, this is an upgrade from what he had in Carolina the last 2 years.
This might be an upgrade over Tom Brady for the Patriots offense. Brady wasn't that good last year. I mean, you just look at his numbers and how he played.
Your inner Steeler fan coming out, Tony. That was the haterade right there.
I'm not trying to compare careers. I'm just saying, 2019.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of people and some of our friends that tend to be Bucs fans that aren't really big Tom Brady guys that aren't really big fans. Like I tend to be the guy that tries to give Tom Brady his credit and talk about how they kind of underrate him. I still said last year was probably one of his worst years, but they considered Tom Brady last year to be washed. And I don't think Cam Newton, even at his lowest point last year, was as bad as Brady was last year. So I think with him being hungry, like Tony said, I think it's scary for people to go out there and really say that, but like they literally could be better with Cam Newton at quarterback if he's, healthy. And to me, Cam's just been a guy, just because I've had him on fantasy football teams. He's always been a guy that's either hurt one year, and it's almost like he has an up and down year. It's like one year he spends is like hurt, and then the next year is just like a monster year where no one can stop him, and then it's hurt again and stuff like that. So
and he
hopefully
he
the
plays through injuries
okay.
a lot too. Yeah,
he does. Oh my God, he played through a ton of injuries there.
Yeah.
And who exactly in that division is going to stop them? They got the Jets, the Dolphins, and then
like I said,
everybody is talking to him.
I'm not trusting the Bills.
Yeah, you want to talk yourself into the Bills, but then you remember Josh Allen's the quarterback.
The 6-10 Browns beat 3 of those teams. The 6-10 terrible Freddie Kitchens Browns.
This is how
you think Bill Belichick with Cam Newton? Oh my goodness. That could be ridiculous.
This is how New England has become a dynasty. That division has been sorry for. I don't know what other division has been this bad for this long. Because you can have a super dominant team, right? And then you can have another team that is still good, maybe not as good as them. But, the reality is that division is Patriots and a laughing stock.
Yeah,
behind
it's funny, too. That
Totally
the two
agree with
franchises that have the most excuses to be awful in Buffalo and New England, because nobody wants to go there in free agency, are the two ones that are like fine. It's the ones that everybody should want to go to. The Jets in Miami, two beautiful places to live, can't get nobody to play there because they sorry.
I like what the Miami are doing. I like Flores.
Yeah.
I think they're like 2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, that's the same thing. 2 years away.
Yeah, the
I hope
Jets.
so.
Who
I
knows?
hope
The
so.
Jets. Who knows?
We'll see if Tua can stretch first. Like let's wait till he gets on the field.
Fair point. Fair point.
Fair point. So next we want to talk about Pat Mahomes. Obviously, this was just a big bomb that just came through today. Kind of caught me off guard because, we've been hearing about Dak and we've been hearing about other things. I didn't expect the Mahomes extension to get done now, but apparently it happens today. And,
Wow.
he gets a 10-year extension that takes him in and keeps him in Kansas City through 2031, the richest contract in NFL history. Is what he's getting. And it's actually a 12-year contract total because he's still got 2 years on his deal right now. So, wow, it's just kind of amazing. I've seen different numbers out there. I think it's somewhere hovering around 500 million. But what does this mean, I guess, for the rest of the NFL? Does this, for you guys, so Quincy, Sonny, and me, we all have young quarterbacks. Obviously, Ben's on his way out. We're not trying to throw any shade or anything there, Tony, but
I am.
realistically,
Not
the
yet.
bar has been set for the quarterbacks that are on our teams. If they ball out and stuff like that, our team's going to be looking at 10-year contracts. So one person that I really think that has the most that's the most affected by this would be Lamar Jackson, right? Because he's the only person that he's coming off of an MVP. If he does win a championship with the Ravens, he's in the same boat. Sonny, how do you feel about this deal? Is this a new benchmark that you're comfortable with Mahomes getting that money? I think everybody feels like if you were in this position, you would sign him to that 10-year contract as well. But Sonny, what are your thoughts on it?
So before I say, so you're saying if Mahomes was in your team, would you sign him to that 10-year deal? Yes or no? You Ace, would you sign him?
Yeah, I mean, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Yeah.
Quincy, will you sign him for that deal?
I feel like I'm gonna say yeah, but I don't like how you're gonna use my answer.
No. Tony, will you sign
Yeah,
him?
look. So the numbers have come out year by year, and looking at the deal, yeah, I mean, this is an insanely good deal for the Chiefs.
It might end up actually
Okay.
being cheap.
Yeah,
Right, it will in the future.
It averaged to what, almost 50 mil, right? See, the problem
with incentives and whatnot. Yeah,
but the problem is, so yes, this deal affects Lamar Jackson, and if he keeps balling out, then he's pointing at that deal. It's like, that's what I want, right? Give me a copy of that and paste. See, when I'm scared, because 400 and whatever mil guarantee, right? 477, I think I read. They're guaranteed.
Well, they're called they're what did the stupid tweet say today? They're like guaranteed structures or something like that. They're not actually guarantees.
They're guaranteed, but he can opt out. Right. It's not the team.
And there's a no trade clause as well, I think.
Well, and there's escalators that like his bonuses trigger a year or two early. So if they can get rid of him like 2 years in advance, then it's not guaranteed anymore for 2 years.
So before we continue, I have the official numbers. So it looks like it was a 10-year extension, $503 million total. Like Sonny said, $477 million in guarantee mechanisms. Like Tony said, I don't know what the hell that actually means.
We're getting into like the financial crisis type verbiage here, right? Where we're going to talk about like fees and
all that means
a great contract.
My money to the cap because I ain't about to be underpaid in 10 years. That's what that means.
Yeah. My only concern, this will be if I have Mahomes with Lamar with everything is 477. Let me assume that it's guaranteed because the only thing that I saw was he can opt out basically after a couple of years, he can opt out every year if he wants to. If it happens to happen, I'm not hoping this for Mahomes because God knows I love to see him play. Is dude gets injured.
Yeah.
Gets injured badly. They're done for years.
Well, it's only the guaranteed for injury is only 125. I think that came out earlier today. It's 125 million. Still,
like 125 million.
Not only 125.
Well, but that
these numbers are so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, but the reason that I was concerned, I didn't know that caveat is when you're tied to that long contract. If again, not hoping Alex Smith type of injury happens, now you're screwed for years.
Right
now, I think point taken is the hope is the cap goes lower for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And if he keeps at it, and I mean, quarterbacks nowadays, he's going to be what? 36, I think?
37, I think, when this contract ends.
Okay, but 37, look, I mean, we have great quarterbacks playing into the late 30s. Drew Brees, Brady, Peyton, and I think those are the three that has been playing good until the late 30s. Eli Manning was trash, and some other ones had tried, but they get injured with neuter arms. So the reality is, Pat Mahomes has the ability to play too late, right? So he's 24. So
man, he's not even going to be old when that contract's up.
No, he will sign. Well, I mean,
it's going to be 12 years. So he's about 36 or 37, like you guys are saying.
Yeah, but remember, he's not going to play through this entire contract, right? This is getting renegotiated at some point.
No, I wouldn't say that because that's exactly what the Ravens said about Joe Flacco when he signed up to the Super Bowl. And what happened was, but what happened was, and like when he had 2 years left, we want a cap release. So what we have to do, we extended him, right? Yeah. And that's what happens, right? So yes, you would think. I used to think stuff like that, but with quarterbacks, I don't know. If he plays well enough, he's playing this whole contract plus, right? That's what Drew Brees did. That's what Peyton Manning did. That's what Tom Brady did. If you're a good quarterback, you play that contract fully.
Well, I think so looking at and Ace pulled it up here on so we can see it. But so if you look at the way that this deal is structured, right? His cap hit doesn't go over $35 million, which is how much Russell Wilson makes a year, and that's the highest per average salary of any quarterback in the NFL right now. He doesn't go over 35 until 2023, right? And then if you look at it, the Chiefs have this year in 2027 where they're basically going to have a $60 million cap hit. That's when I think we get into the idea of like, okay, if you're gonna extend or if you're gonna redo this contract, I don't know that. Look, and I don't know what the salary cap is going to be in 2027, but it just feels like $60 million is probably still too much. So they may want to renegotiate at that point. But I think this is really team friendly. I mean, if you look at it, right, look at the cap savings. Look at the cap savings according to overthecap.com here, right? I mean, this is a deal that they can get out of in 4 years. Okay, and they can get out of and basically have no dead money at that point. It's actually really interesting how they've structured this. For Mahomes, obviously he gets a ton of guarantees and all the roster bonus. He's betting on himself. He only gets $10 million of it up front. But on the other side for the Chiefs, they get to say, hey, look, if this guy falls off a cliff 4 years from now, we're out of this deal, and no harm, no foul.
So one thing that I will say is, and this is now for Lamar, I think for the Ravens, based on this contract and all that, I have been saying the Ravens will be good if they sign Lamar next year. The reason why is Lamar's and cap hit next year is very low. I mean, we're talking about a couple mil. And then you have the 5th-year option. So you pick up that 5th-year option. So basically, like Mahomes, you have him for 2 years. But in my opinion, what they need to do is, you see how Mahomes here stays with the $5.34 million cap hit. What I would like the Ravens to do is elevate Lamar's will be less than 5.3. Whatever the number is, elevate it to like 10 or 12. I think Lamar's like 2 or 3 mil. Elevate it to 10 or 12. And then the following year, also elevate it a little bit and then flatten the rest out. So maybe the contract is like 40 mil average per year. Mm-hmm. But if you take the next year and the following year and up it to 10 and maybe 18, you take those 18 million extra and then you flatten that to whatever that comes out, right? Maybe instead of 40, now you're paying 35 mil guaranteed for the next 3 or 4 years. That will help your cap situation moving forward as well. See, the thing that the Ravens have, and the Chiefs quasi have it too, is we have to pay Stanley, we have to pay Judon, we have Andrews, and we have Brown. 4 players. They are top of their positions. Stanley, arguably, you can say he's top left tackle in the league. Brown is one of the best on the right tackle side, and then Andrews also has been in the past year or so been playing as one of the top tight ends in the league. And then you have Lamar, so you have a lot of people to pay. So that's and Marlon. Marlon's also coming up to be a free agent, Marlon Humphrey. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of players that you have to pay, or you have to figure out what is the situation with them. And with that said, the only way that I can see it is the only contract here that will break the bank is Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Right? The other ones might be high, but I don't know if they're gonna break the bank.
Well, do you think? Did Mahomes just reset the market? Right. I mean, are we gonna start seeing quarterback deals that look like this, or is this just because Mahomes is on another level? I mean, look, Mahomes.
I think it's last
couple of years.
I think it's both. I think quarterback salaries are gonna get elevated.
Yeah, but so 45. Is 45 the new?
They should not touch Mahomes. I mean, maybe Lamar. If he,
technically, this is what Mahomes is. Second season?
Third.
Technically as the starter, this is only his second season going into his third. Yeah. So the first season he didn't play, and then the second season. So it's almost similar to Lamar Jackson as far as last year really kind of being his first. And I mean, before that, he still had those other games. But if Lamar Jackson goes out and wins a Super Bowl, how can you not give him this same deal?
Yeah,
I think the thing that'll be interesting ultimately when it comes to this being kind of a landmark deal is going to be the years, right? Because for so long we've complained about how hard it is to win a Super Bowl when you have to pay your franchise quarterback $30-40 million a year. I think that gets a little bit overplayed, but there is some merit to it. And I think this is how you combat it. If you want to give somebody a 10-year deal, this is like the Carson Palmer deal in kind of a way, like the first Carson Palmer deal. If you want to give somebody a Carson Palmer deal, you're going to say, hey, look, you're going to be ridiculously overpaid for the first 2 years. You probably run your Super Bowl. You're going to take your hit for those first 2 years. But then 5-6 years down the line, that might end up being a good value at the contract. I mean, I look at it like a lot of things, like if you look at things like the NBA, right? When Tristan Thompson signed that extension in Cleveland, people were like, that's ridiculous. By the end of that contract, it's not even a good enough contract or a big enough contract to trade because of how the cap just exploded in that sport. And the cap's going to explode in the NFL in the same way. So if your team, I think this is very smart for both sides. Patrick Mahomes gets to have a landmark deal, 10-year deal. And then the Chiefs, let's be honest, even if Patrick Mahomes gets injured for 2 years, he's on a 12-year deal. You know what I mean? Like, let's say he does get injured and he misses 2 seasons. Like, that's probably the worst case scenario. You get 2 years, you miss 2 years of Patrick Mahomes. That's 2 out of a 12-year deal. Ultimately, it's irrelevant if he comes back in 5 and wins 2 Super Bowls and still has 3 years left on the deal. So this is how you combat that. Now, as far as other quarterbacks, not every quarterback is going to be able to be in a situation where somebody's going to feel comfortable handing them a 10-year deal. And it's not just about the style that Lamar plays. It's also about other things that you worry about as far as cap flexibility and just the want to from the organization. Like if he didn't win the Super Bowl this year and he lost an AFC championship, you don't commit to 10 years to a quarterback. But since you did, now you have some flexibility where you can stink or disappoint for the next 2 years, and nobody's really going to be mad in Kansas City because you just won that Super Bowl. So it's too odd of a situation to say, like, this is what the next great quarter, this is what Deshaun Watson's going to get, this is what Lamar Jackson's going to get. Sure, you can point towards that, but Patrick Mahomes is such an outlier that only Lamar Jackson is even close to doing what he has to do, and he still has to win a Super Bowl in order to do that, which is not guaranteed. And even then, I don't know what the GM and their hesitancy will be, and their mentality will be towards paying Lamar Jackson, since they do put his body on the line a lot more than they ask Patrick Mahomes to put his body on the line. So it's going to be interesting to see how they value that. Yeah, I honestly think Lamar should get back pay, because if you putting your body on the line for your rookie deal, you better pay me when my knees start to hurt a little bit. Like I did that for you.
The funny thing is that you mentioned, Quincy, is you mentioned the Carson Palmer deal. You also have to remember another player that had a similar contract to this was Michael Vick, who also was comparable to Lamar Jackson. So that's another thing that, like you said, that's a great point that you brought up, is are they going to do that again, given how things have kind of fared with Michael Vick? And I mean, it's almost hard to compare Michael Vick because he did spend time in jail. So he was away from the league for several years and they'd come back and they were able to get out of that contract. So we really didn't see what it would be like to give a mobile quarterback who plays like that for that long in a long contract. But I did see today that Deshaun Watson was pleased about that contract. Yeah, so I think that he is actually thinking about that. The one thing I think about too that's going to impact this is, what does this do with Dak's contract now? Because they were talking about 3 or 4 years. They were arguing over that, and now we've got 10 as like the benchmark. And in my opinion, he hasn't done anything close to what Mahomes has done. So what do you do with those kind of quarterbacks that fall into that area?
I put the SpongeBob meme on my Twitter where it was like the guy laughing that he's going to beat up SpongeBob. And I was like, that's Patrick Mahomes. And then you got SpongeBob laughing like he in the game too. Like, that's Dak Prescott. Like, Dak think he about to get this money. Dak ain't about to get that money. Well, maybe somebody else might offer Dak that money, but Jerry Jones ain't going to offer. Jerry Jones still thinks giving you 6 years, $100 million is a big deal. And that is just not a deal anymore. Like, that's like you give that to a decent defensive end nowadays. So Dak ain't getting that money. I don't know. Maybe if he hits the free agency market and he has like a monster MVP level year, and I don't even see the market there for teams desperate to sign a quarterback like it used to be when Sam Bradford would get like $40 million to just be hurt, So he's just not in a great spot right now, because you can only really get that money unless you Patrick Mahomes, and it's not his fault. There's like one Patrick Mahomes in the whole universe.
Right. But it used to be that like every quarterback that came up, right? It was just kind of a yearly thing, right? Everybody reset the market regardless of quality, just because you're a quarterback and you need a new contract, right? And so you had like, Kirk Cousins was the highest paid quarterback at one point on a yearly salary. Then Aaron Rodgers, went above him. Then now Russell Wilson went above him, right? The problem here is that when you look at the Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson deals, you went from $33 million a year to $33.5 to $35, right? The NFL just went from paying their top quarterback, Russell Wilson, $35 million a year to paying Patrick Mahomes, on average, $45 million a year. This is where I think the quarterback market does get reset in a weird way, because every team now that's negotiating with a quarterback is dealing with this uncertainty of where are we fitting in here, right? Are we going above Patrick Mahomes? Are we going to have to pay $46 million a year? Can we get away with 40? 40 already would have reset the market yesterday in a huge way, right? $5 million a year more than Russell Wilson. Today, $40 million almost feels like a steal. Like if Lamar Jackson signed for $40 million, Sonny, I think a lot of Ravens fans would feel like, that's pretty good, right? We got a pretty good deal on that one.
Cut so we can get a tight end. That's what you do. You know what I mean?
So I would say with the whole Dak Prescott thing, when they say Andy Dalton, I know that's Ace Boy. I remember talking to this YouTuber from Dallas, and I said, if the whole Dak, this is before he signed the franchise tag, how the market was right there, I would have let him try. I'd be like, this is my final offer, 30 whatever it was. I don't know. I forgot what was the rumor. Here it is. You want to see what is out there? Because I don't think there was going to be much. Go find something. And if you find it, good. If not, we'll be here for you and we'll sign you back. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He is a good quarterback. He is not a elite quarterback. Mahomes is probably the best quarterback or top 2, 3 in the league. Dak Prescott
He's top one. He's top one.
He's top one.
Dak Prescott is what, 10, 12?
He's top 10 probably. Yeah.
So the reality is right now you have a quarterback market that is halfway saturated, and also teams are looking, well, I like that kid from Clemson next year, right? And what teams need a quarterback if you think about it?
That's the thing, though. Like, there's name me the teams with terrible quarterback situations. It used to not be that hard to find. The Browns used to have the worst quarterback situations in the world of sports ever. But now, if you look around the NFL, there's really not a ton of situations that are just desolate like that. And even when they are slightly desolate, like the Patriots, we could just sign Cam Newton off the street.
Right. Well, why Cam Newton lasted so long is because there weren't a ton of open spots.
Jameis Winston is backing up somebody right now for $1 million a year. There's not 5 years ago, when Joe Flacco got his deal after that Super Bowl, it made sense because a decent average game managing quarterback, not saying that he was, but that's what he's perceived to be.
I got you.
Yeah, but that kind of level of quarterback was worth it because it was so hard to find somebody who could just start a damn game. That's why Andy Dalton got his money, because it was understood that at least this dude can go out there and start. But as the years went on and the quarterback market got deeper and deeper, and there's more young guys coming out every year, you start to look at Andy Dalton a little bit funny. You start to look at guys like Joe Flacco a little bit funny, and you go, maybe we don't have to pay mediocre $20 million a year. Maybe we don't have to give Matt Glennon $15 million a year. And some of these ridiculous contracts started to go down. So for Patrick Mahomes, if you are Patrick Mahomes level, which means in your first 5 years, you prove that you're going to make the Hall of Fame, you're going to get that deal. But for everybody else, that market is going to start to crunch down and start to normalize, because a guy like Baker Mayfield, let's say he has a great third year, he's probably going to be lucky to get 25, 30 million per year. Maybe he can get more than that, but I doubt he'll get offered more than that on the free market. Maybe somebody like Joe Burrow has the potential to have this kind of a ridiculous contract, but I don't see this Patrick Mahomes contract being a worry, because there's only so many people who are going to step in the NFL and legitimately make a Hall of Fame case before before they're even at their 5th-year option.
Yeah. Right. It's going to be the elite quarterbacks. I think, like you said, those are going to only be those guys that are going to touch this territory for sure. So with that being said, we've kind of touched on, the 2 hottest news topics so far, but we haven't touched on some of the items that have happened to our respective teams since we've essentially been going since our last episode. So kicking things off, I would probably want to start with, let's go with Quincy. Let's talk to us about some of the recent things that have happened with the Browns and what you guys have gone through and just what's going on in Cleveland right now.
Yeah, well, I know everybody's excited about Patrick Mahomes' deal. I know all these big news items are hitting, but you guys kind of glossed over the biggest news item to happen this week in football, which is David Njoku, backup tight end for the Cleveland Browns, is requesting a trade. David Njoku, who is a worse version of Eric Ebron, and Eric Ebron couldn't get traded by the Detroit Lions when he was available, and it's probably because that 5th-year option that the team put on him, which I have not been that critical of the front office, but that was stupid to me. I never understood why they gave him the 5th-year option in the first place. But now you've just made it harder to trade this guy. I know they think they're going to keep him. He's not a fit for tight end 2. A guy who can't catch, run consistent routes, and block should not be your tight end 2. That's a guy who you want to.
Doesn't sound like a tight end at all, really.
I mean, if you want to see if he could do the Jimmy Graham thing and see if he could be the number 1 tight end while you got somebody else out here doing the dirty work, sure. That's what you got to do. But now that you signed Austin Hooper, what are you going to do with him? A guy like Stephen Carlson, who's a good player, not great, is a better fit for that role because he can block a little bit and he can catch a little bit. And when he runs on the field, people aren't like, oh, well, they're going double tight end seams. Easy. Let's just get out of cover 2 right now and just fix that whole situation. But I don't even get why he requested a trade. He was going to get cut in August anyways. But
Quincy, I had read from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that he had been requesting a trade for a year, or at least it had been known within the organization that Njoku would be okay with a trade at some point. So this may be like a Duke Johnson type thing where they've kind of known that he wants out, but he kind of played through it and eventually,
it's kind of a Duke Johnson thing, right? But it's not like he's Duke Johnson, and Duke Johnson's not the most effective
player. A quality player.
Like this is somebody who came back off of injury and had 4 targets for the last 3 weeks of the season. 4 targets. It's Dante Moncrief's level of unproductive. So I don't know what his camp thinks they're gonna get for him. You think you're gonna like people are telling me we can get 5th and 6th for David Njoku. Why would they just not wait for him to get cut and clear waivers? He's gonna make $6 million next year to do nothing and to not want to be there. They're not gonna let him get to that point. So they're gonna cut him either at the end of this season or at the start of this season. So just wait till he clears waivers so you don't have to deal with the 5th-year option and just sign him then. The Browns really tied their hands. If they knew that he wanted to be traded this whole time, why in the world would you put the 5th-year option on him? Because you just at least you traded Corey Coleman for a conditional 2 years later 7th-round pick. And that's why because he didn't have a 5th-year option because it wasn't a commitment.
Yeah.
But now you're asking somebody to take this guy after the draft who's a project and then commit to $6 million to him in 2021? Are you? Nobody's doing that.
And he has to stay healthy, right?
Yeah, he can't.
Well, he got hurt last year, yeah.
And that's not even the biggest part because he can stay healthy. He played like 15 games his rookie year, 16 games in 2018. The problem is he doesn't catch the ball consistently. Mm-hmm. That's it. And he plays tight end and he doesn't block good. Like these are things that make you hard to put on the field. And this is a guy who has had a strong fall from grace because we were talking last year about this dude being a part of the young core with Kareem Hunt. Yeah. How are we going to feed all these mouths? And he's not even an option on the menu anymore because something happened between week 2 when he got injured and week 14 when he came back because how that team valued him drastically changed, and I don't think that's for no reason. But yeah, David Njoku is available, and I made the joke on Twitter, Tony, that the Steelers are going to pick him up off waivers so they can have a worse Eric Ebron. Because that's what the Steelers would like to do. Like they tell me they won't.
Tony was enticed by that. Tony was looking like
okay. Well, hold on. First of all, the Steelers got 2018 Eric Ebron. We got to remember that, right? So this is Eric Ebron who caught 13 touchdowns. That's the one they signed. Second of all, I really liked Njoku in the draft. I really wanted the Steelers to draft Njoku. They needed a tight end at the time. This is pre, I believe, Vance McDonald. And what's funny is the Browns drafted Njoku 1 pick before the Steelers were on the clock.
They went up ahead of y'all purposely to get him.
Yeah,
and now y'all gonna be able to get him for free.
And I have to thank you because the Steelers ended up with TJ Watt with the very next pick. So that ended up working out. Yeah. Look, I'm surprised. I am shocked. And Quincy, you could probably talk more about this, right? But and you did touch on it. How good Njoku was his first couple years, right? Seemed like a player in the ascension. When I remember watching his tape in college and saying, "Boy, this guy has a lot of raw talent, and if you could work with him, this could be a guy 3-4 years down the line that could be one of the best tight ends in the league." And it certainly looked like he was on that way. I don't know if he was ever going to be the best tight end in the league, but certainly going to be a really effective tight end in what was becoming a passing league. And now it should, this guy, like you said, he's gonna have to make his career somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. If you ever want to know what's went wrong with David Njoku, watch the Hard Knocks in 2018, and you'll see a part of that episode where a dude whose biggest problem is catching the ball gets in trouble with the coaching staff. And what did they do? What did they do to punish him? They make him go on the jugs machine. They had to make him do what he's supposed to be fixing because he wasn't doing what he was doing. This is the problem with David Njoku. He already thinks he's Gronk. He thinks he's Gronk. He's not Gronk, and he's not willing to put in the work to go into Gronk because I agree with you. If he got it together and went somewhere like Pittsburgh where they're not just going to let him do whatever, yeah, he might be decent. He might actually come up here.
I can say it now. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
David
not
Njoku,
this year. The Steelers
I'm back from the future. David Njoku has been cut by the Browns, and he has signed for a minimum deal with the Patriots to team up with Cam Newton and New England.
That's the play.
I gotta find a new sport.
Bill
Belichick would be like, bro, you had to get punished by going to the jugs machine. You're not playing here.
But wait, Quincy, haven't you noticed that the Patriots take everybody that you guys cut and try them?
They try everyone. Anyone.
Sometimes it works. Yeah.
Patriots and the Chiefs. The Chiefs have just feasted on the Browns' bad offensive line selection for like 3 years. But then they work.
Who's the linebacker that the Browns signed from the Patriots and he was trash? And then Jamie Collins. That's
Jamie Collins.
Back to the Patriots, all-star again. Just
they got shells.
I can give you a whole list. Of just bad trades we've made with the Patriots. We took in Jamie Collins. We took in Willie McGinnis at the end of his career. We took in all these dudes. Eric Mangini's whole team was just a bunch of dudes who could not make it in New England anymore. And then we have Danny Shelton, has a good 2 years. Jason McCourty gets paired up with his twin brother, has a good 2 years over there. A ton of guys. Batamosi, I believe, was over there just working for a couple times. Josh Gordon went over there.
So basically, you're telling me to put money on the odds that Njoku is going to the Browns. To the Patriots. It's pretty much
here's the big money long-term deal thing. Let's say Baker Mayfield has an all right next 2 years, but you can't justify paying him that much, and the Browns getting a little bit of a petty dispute. Bill Belichick going to swoop that up for $15 million a year on 6 million a year. And Baker Mayfield's going to because if you look at the Patriots, it's literally that whole organization, all their success is built off of things that the Browns missed out on. Bill Belichick missed out on. Tom Brady drafted Spurgeon Wynn 5 picks ahead, who wasn't even good in FCS football, ahead of Tom Brady. That whole dynasty is just hey, the Browns could have had this if they weren't so dysfunctional and moved. But I digress. We could have had something better, but
So there's a couple of other notable players that the Browns kind of had contact with. The Browns spoke to Cam Newton. They didn't make him an offer, but they spoke to him. And then obviously we know that they tried to make the offer to Jadeveon Clowney, and we haven't heard anything from that. He turned it down and is entertaining other offers. Hasn't said that he won't play for the Browns, but he just turned that offer down and said that he's still waiting to see if he can get a better offer. Quincy, were there any thoughts that you had to give on either of those two things? The Cam Newton one, I'm not going to lie, kind of shocked me. I was like, where is that coming from?
I feel like I want to know more information about that, because what in the world told Andrew Berry that it'd be a good idea to bring in 6'6" Cam Newton to stand behind Baker Mayfield after you done paid Case Keenum $8 million to hold the backup spot down? Why would you do that? Why would you purposely make both your quarterbacks look very inferior to the third stringer? I don't know why they would do that. That didn't make very much sense to me. Maybe they thought about bringing him in some kind of different capacity. Either way, I don't think it was ever realistic they were going to bring in Cam Newton unless they were going to get him to play defensive end. And that's where we go to Jadeveon Clowney, because they need somebody to come and play that other end rusher spot. Because I said this on Joe Nobu's show with Sonny the other day, but Myles Garrett is on his own right now on that defensive line. And he can do that, especially against I'm not picking on you, Tony, I promise. But against the Steelers, that for whatever reason, Myles Garrett tends to have his best game. So
Villanueva has a really hard time with Garrett.
Yeah, he's way too long, and he's not flexible enough to get with Miles's bend. So he has a hard time. So against teams like Pittsburgh, who are strong on the offensive line, but it's just a good matchup, he can't be good enough to where it doesn't matter how trash the rest of the defensive line is. But it's almost painful to watch at times, because it's like watching the Cavs in 2007 when they just had Larry Hughes and Eric Snow out there running point. And it's he needs help. Miles needs help. Get him help. Right. And Jadeveon Clowney is the ideal help. I know Ace does not like Jadeveon Clowney as much as I do, but I think Jadeveon is the best run stuffer from that position you can get. And I think he's the only guy you can sign or attain right now that's a star-level player that can play both inside and edge rusher if you need him to. Very versatile player, very good. And if you're the Browns, you need that, because your weaknesses are inside the defensive line and on the other edge rusher position. But you have some depth there with Adrian Claiborne, maybe Chad Thomas. So again, if you can get somebody like Clowney who can plug those holes, especially in the run game, you're going to have something special. So for the Browns, you better keep offering. You better keep offering until he just flat out tells you no, because you you need something like that, or else, Lamar Jackson's going to run for like 200 easy, like he did last year in that second game against the Browns.
No, I think you make a great point, Quincy. I think when I say, like, in terms of Jadeveon Clowney, I think that he is a great run stopper. I think that's something that you brought up. He's a decent combo rusher, but I think when I say that I feel like he's overrated, it's when you don't have that Myles Garrett and he's supposed to be your Myles Garrett, that I feel like he's kind of overrated. But I think that he would work perfectly with Myles Garrett, and I think that the Browns is the perfect situation for him for sure. So we've talked about the Browns. Let's go ahead and talk about the Steelers. What's been going on, Tony, with the Steelers since the last time we talked?
Yeah, honestly, not a whole lot, right? I mean, there's a weekly story about how Ben is so far ahead of schedule, guy. I mean, the guy is just ready to play football tomorrow if he needed to. You always get that story. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm honestly, like, I'm excited about Ben. I'm excited about watching him play again. I haven't seen him in over a year playing football, but I'm even getting tired of these, like, weekly, Ben ahead of schedule, ready to practice. I think the biggest news in the last month or so has been the news that Matt Filer, the Steelers' right tackle from a year ago, is going to move to left guard. This had been kind of widely assumed when you looked at the moves the Steelers made in the offseason, that it made sense that he would fill in for Ramon Foster at the left guard position. That seems like it is going to happen. He's going to start with first-team reps there. It means that there's going to be an open competition at the right tackle spot. The Steelers are going to have to choose between Chooks Okorafor. I say it wrong, and my co-host or my former co-host Chris Carter gets angry with me. I think it's Okorafor. And then Zach Banner is the other right tackle, fan favorite there. He's tackle eligible in Pittsburgh. They're going to compete over the right tackle spot, and we'll see what happens here. I mean, look, the Steelers' offensive line has been so good in the past couple of years, and I think it took a step backwards last year. In some ways, Pouncey had a bit of a down year. But, this is going to mean a little bit of a reshuffling. That everybody knew the Steelers' offensive line was going to see a downturn for two reasons. One, even the all-stars that they have, guys like David DeCastro and Pouncey, right? These are guys who are exiting the prime of their career and starting to enter the end there. And also, they lost Munchak, who was like their unbelievably good offensive line coach who could just turn anyone into an all-pro. So, there was always going to be a downturn. Yet, Steelers fans are going to hope that this doesn't mean bad things. Look, Filer was a very good right tackle for them a year ago. The Steelers always thought he was better as a guard. In fact, when they went up against Aaron Donald a year ago, they moved him to guard in that game because they felt like he was a better player than Ramon Foster at the time. So they have a lot of belief in Filer as a guard. We'll see what happens at right tackle. I know fans love Zach Banner. He certainly improved. Okorafor, I think, has been a little bit of a disappointment just because he hasn't seen the field as much, and he was a former third-round pick. So those are kind of the on-the-field news that's happened over the past month or so. The other stuff that's happening, I mean, look, there's open contract negotiations that are happening in Pittsburgh. Bud Dupree, and whether or not the Steelers are going to be able to work out a long-term deal with Bud. The answer to that question is no, absolutely not. I mean, it's just, we're talking about $16 million for Bud Dupree, and they've just drafted what could potentially be his replacement, Alex Highsmith, in the draft. I just don't think that there's any chance that the Steelers are going to spend big money on Bud Dupree. And then the other contract that they're talking about right now is Cam Hayward, and whether or not they're going to get the Cam Hayward deal done. Cam Hayward, 31 years old, entering his final year of his contract. The Steelers like to get these deals done before the regular season starts. They may have some extra time here if the regular season gets delayed. But I think the whole COVID situation has meant the Steelers aren't really negotiating any contracts right now. And you have to wonder how much money they want to put into a guy like Cam Hayward, who is 31. He's still playing at a very high level. I mean, a lot of the analytics guys are saying this is the second best interior defensive lineman in the league behind Aaron Donald. I know, a lot of Chris Jones people in the chat are gonna get upset here in a second. But look, the Steelers are probably going to work out an extension there. What does it mean for guys like Juju a year from now? What does it mean for TJ Watt a year from now? James Conner is probably a lost cause. He's probably going to end up being on a different team. But the Steelers have some salary stuff they have to work out because remember, if the NFL plays without fans and then the salary cap decreases in 2021, the Steelers are going to be the team maybe hurt the absolute most by that. They have to pay Ben Roethlisberger as a cap $41 million in 2021 against the cap.
Patrick Mahomes money.
It's more than Patrick Mahomes money. Patrick Mahomes next year, I believe, against the cap is $24 million. Okay, the Steelers would love $24 million for their quarterback. Yeah, I mean it's going to be a tough situation for them. So remember when I was talking about how the Steelers have I think the Steelers have a 2-year window with how good their defense is, and if Ben can get back, if the salary cap goes down in 2021, it's a 1 year.
1 year.
It's a 1 year window because you're going to see a lot of guys leave this team. This can look like a totally different roster in 2021 if the salary cap goes down.
It's coming. The Big Ben release.
Looking forward to it. Hey, you know what? No.
It won't be Ben released. It'll be all the other guys, right? You're talking about guys not Juju leaving. You're talking about the offensive line getting wrecked. I mean,
come on, Tony.
Hey.
Would you really want them to cut TJ Watt and these guys for keeping Ben Roethlisberger?
No, I'm saying this is what will happen, right? They won't cut Ben.
Why not? You have 19 million.
He's the face of the franchise. He's the face of the franchise.
Come on, man.
Hey, hold on. I gotta do this to Tony real quick.
Eli Manning was the face of the Giants franchise, and he had to go.
Too long. They're gonna keep Ben too long.
We gotta ask Tony this question. If the Steelers don't start off good this season, do you guys just start to trade off some of your older assets like a Cam Hayward and a TJ Watt, just to make up some room so you can get some assets back because in order to rebuild? I know the Bengals were asked about this last year, but hey, if you guys start off 1-6, you might want to get, because let's say like I think it's about like a 50-50 shot that Ben is like 50% of Ben at this point. If it's not, if you hit that other side of that 50-50 shot, I don't know how good things are going to go this year. You guys got a lot of breaks last year during the season.
I think like Tommy said, though, even if the Steelers were to go, like, let's just say worst case scenario, they went 6-10 or something like that, they're still going to let Ben leave on his own terms. They're not going to be like a team that would just be like, you're out of here after whenever. It would be the wrong thing to do. But I think
like in a vacuum, right? You would say, oh, we have an aging quarterback who's well below his prime and making an absurd amount of money as a cap hit. We should probably cut that guy, right? In a vacuum, you would do that. But when you enter in, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is Ben Roethlisberger, maybe the best quarterback that is certainly either the best or second best quarterback the franchise has ever seen. I just don't see them cutting him.
I'm just saying, from my perspective, I would do it. I don't think that they're going to do it, though. I think they're going to make the same mistake that the New York Giants made, keep him too long, and it's just going to be a huge issue for him.
It's too long.
I didn't think that Green Bay would draft another quarterback as soon as they did, but you know what I mean? They did, and they about to give Aaron Rodgers.
They were savage. They were savage with Brett Favre, though. That was pretty savage.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Brett Favre retired like 5 times. Like at some point, like just leave me, bro. Like, come on. Like it's like the girl that breaks up with you like 3 different times on 3 different text messages. At some point, you're like, you know what? I'm over it. Like you gotta get over it.
I was actually over that stuff because he kept saying he was coming back. I was just like, and ESPN would have a field day with it every time that he would be like, I'm coming back.
Think about it like this. They broke up with Aaron Rodgers. They told Aaron Rodgers, we about to break up with you. And he was good last season. Like, he was there. He went to the AFC Championship. The Steelers are out here looking at Big Ben like, hey, buddy.
No, we're looking at it like, save us, Obi-Wan Ben Roethlisberger. You're our only hope. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the alternative at this point?
You're the guy with the broken down truck on the side of the road that's like kicking the tires, hoping that's going to like turn the car on. I don't know what's going to happen.
Even Ben at 50%. This is a team that was 8-8 last year with Duck and Mason. I don't think they're going to be worse. And I understand defense is going to regress. I get that. Yes, the turnovers were insane. They're not going to be that good anymore. The offenses they played weren't the top in the league. All of that, yes, I understand. Defense is still young and talented.
Who had the worst QBR of all 3 of the quarterbacks last season?
Who had the worst QBR? I don't even know. Was it Ben? I mean, he was bad the first 2 weeks. He was bad. Yeah.
So what if that's the Ben you get?
Well, maybe. I mean, like, and then where's the argument? I've heard this argument before. You're going to throw
the ball 40 times a game, so you're going to run less.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. You're painting. Look, and you guys love to do this, and I love it too. You guys are painting like the darkest possible picture for the Steelers, right? And I get it. And this absolutely could happen.
It's a realistic one, though.
No, Ben is bad. Not only has been bad, but he still has his hands all over the offense to where they're throwing 700 times a year, just like they did his last year. I mean, that is the worst case scenario.
Ryan Switzer with like a hurt elbow. This has the potential to, like, I'm not saying like it's all bad, because if Ben is like 50% of what he is, you're not going to be worse than 8-8, right? Like that's the reality of the situation. But I don't think people fully appreciate how bad this can get if he's worse.
Right. No, but I don't think you can look, and I've heard this argument, right? Oh, if you look at how he was in 2019, there's no reason to think he's going to be better after an elbow surgery in 2020, right? Okay.
Tommy John, yeah.
It's not Tommy John. It's a different surgery, but it's very much not Tommy John.
The thing is like throwing outside the pocket, off platform, strictly off his elbow.
Totally different surgery. Totally. No, but look, Ben always starts slow. And Quincy, of all people, okay, you should be the one who knows this because you've watched Ben Roethlisberger on opening day the last couple of years. Ben Roethlisberger in that game against the Browns, where there was a tie, 21-21, right? Was he not awful? I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was terrible in that game. He has started slow every year for like the last 3 years. Okay, this is what he does. And he started slow in 2019. It takes some time for this team to ramp up. It is a reason. It was an interesting article that was written in the Athletic by Mark Caboli, who wrote that, and this goes against what I think, but this is what he wrote. He said the longer the NFL takes to start any kind of preseason or training camp, the better off the Steelers are. The better off they are. The longer it takes them to get any kind of practice, any kind of mini camp, any kind of preseason, all of that. Because his argument is that the Steelers are such a veteran team, a defense that played together so much last year. Ben's already 37. He doesn't need practice and all of that. And Tomlin as a coach.
Team 12 games, 3 games into the season now?
Yeah.
What's that?
The best player on the defense joined the team halfway through the season last year.
Yeah, no, I mean, but okay. Well, maybe they won't be able to utilize him in the ways that they want to in the upcoming year, right? Where they want to move him around. But even if you just plug him in a free safety again, right? When you look at the passer rating that he had in 2019, even in the back half of the year where they didn't, no one threw his way, right? And he was spectacular. So it's an interesting point, though, right? Because the point he brings up is teams like the Patriots, teams like the Bengals, teams like the Browns, right? The Steelers are always going to be ahead in preparation from those teams who are making major changes. The one thing the Steelers are not doing year over year, they did not make any major changes this offseason. They didn't have a first-round pick, right? So it's not even like they're looking at this draft class as like, you guys come in and save us at all these positions, right? They're coming in with an organization or with a roster that is pretty much the same as it was a year ago. They need Ben to get back on the same page. And this is my worry. This is where I disagree with Mark Caboli. I thought the Steelers with a 5th preseason game should play Ben. They only play him in 2 games usually. I thought they should play him in at least 4, maybe even all 5 games at some point to get him back in the rhythm of playing quarterback. Because this is a guy who comes into every year as rusty as you can be, and it takes him till week 3 or 4 before this guy's playing up to speed. If it's gonna take him longer now because there's gonna be a lack of a preseason, if you're talking about 5, 6, 7 games, we talked about the Steelers' schedule the last time we talked. The beginning of the Steelers' schedule is very difficult, especially after you get past those first couple games. Right? They have Giants, then they have Giants and Broncos. Those are winnable games. But let's say the Steelers go 0-2 or 1-1 in those games, and now they've got the Texans coming into town. Right? They got the Ravens coming up. This is not a team that can afford early losses like that. So I disagree with Caboli. I understand what you guys are saying. I have more faith that Ben's going to turn it around. But I certainly have concerns about where this team is going to be early on in the year. I think that, Tomlin teams always are better in the second half of the year. And thank goodness for that 7th playoff spot this year, because worst case scenario, I think this team is 8-8 or 9-7, right around there.
Right.
And I think that's good enough to make the playoffs.
Definitely.
I think. I mean, I don't think that is going to be a complete disaster with Ben. And I actually want you guys to keep Ben and not end up with the first or a top 5 pick. So I'm good with the Steelers sticking with Ben.
I want
going
7-9,
and winning 8 games, and then Ben Roethlisberger falls off a cliff. And then we have who's that guy? Who's the guy from last year? The backup for the Steelers, not Duck, but the other guy that was Mason Rudolph comes in to save the day, and they have to wait another year or so until, because I don't think the Steelers are ever going to be bad to the point where they're going to be picking in the top 5 even without Ben, and I'm good with that though, because that keeps them from getting like an elite quarterback or something like that. So
have you guys seen Trey Lance yet? Trey Lance, North Dakota State.
Yeah, North Dakota State. Yeah, I know you're talking about. He's pretty good doing right now. My point to you though, Tony, is I get what you're saying about, hey, Ben has started slow the last 3 years, and he normally does start slow. But dog, just because the check engine light been on for 3 years, don't mean it ain't gonna break down.
Right.
I'm trying to tell you something. This thing is gonna break down.
I agree. Listen, I totally agree. I'm just saying you can't use 2018 as like, oh, this is proof that he wasn't going to be good anyway in 2019, right?
Right. It's not a large enough sample size, especially for Ben, somebody who normally comes on late.
Yeah.
But the slow starts do say something throughout the years that something might not be aging well in his body. And I get the argument that, hey, Tom Brady's 45 and Tom Brady
can't say he's done.
I get that. Then Big Ben's not top 45 yet, But also, if you look at the rest of his draft class, all of those guys are either retired or very close to wash.
Mhm.
And I would say Eli and Phillip Rivers, both from a health standpoint, as far as like getting injured, and then also from a self-care standpoint, I would say are better at taking care of their body than Ben. And it's honestly a miracle he's at this point, to be honest with you.
Listen,
the
you guys,
care he's had for his body. Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. Like
you already know. Listen,
like this is not. He does the anti-TB12. This man don't do no.
listen.
He don't do no. This man eats burgers.
You guys know the articles are already being written about how this is the best Ben has ever felt in his entire career. He's in the best shape of his life.
I'm sure
These articles are already being written, so you know it's fine.
Okay,
This
now
is fine.
serious question. This is serious for the Steelers, not for real.
Yeah.
I think if I was a Steelers fan, what I would like to happen is
Mhm.
next year Big Ben gets cut, and
Of course, anytime you can cut your future Hall of Fame quarterback, as a fan, you have to do it.
But listen to this, and figure out if we can make a trade with the Packers
For
to
Aaron
get
Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. You would
Right,
need
like-
to trade so much. It's not worth it.
Or y'all could have just signed Cam Newton this year.
That would have been
There-
better.
Or
No.
Jameis. I was a big
30 for
Jameis. Listen,
30.
you guys know I came around on Jameis. I was more on the Jameis.
You can sign Jameis next year because Jameis ain't gonna do nothing in New Orleans. So that's still gonna be an option available.
It should be, yeah.
That might be a good like 3-5 year option while you probably draft or develop somebody, while you could be mediocre but not like terrible. Because that's what y'all don't roll with terrible. Y'all do mediocre a little bit, but not terrible.
I'll tell you guys what's going to happen. I'll tell you guys what's more likely to happen. You guys keep talking about cutting Ben next year. I'll tell you what's more likely to happen. The Steelers are more likely to extend him out by another year to spread
Oh
that
my
cap space
God.
out. Yeah, that's more likely to happen. Okay, so there's no chance they're cutting him. There is a chance that they look at
I would
$41
love
million
it.
and say, "Hey, we can't pay this, Ben. Can we extend you for another year so we can stretch that cap space a little bit?"
You know what I think's gonna happen? Ben's gonna be garbage this year. They're gonna let him play out them 2 years, and then he's gonna be so trash that he gets Mike Tomlin hired. And then who they're gonna hire to replace Mike Tomlin? Big Ben. He's been a coach on the sidelines for so many years. He's part of the system, and then they're gonna pay him $40 million to be the coach.
The coach.
Love it.
Oh my goodness! All right, so moving on from the Steelers, let's talk about the Ravens. Sonny, I've seen some things with people wanting you guys to trade for Jamal Adams, but what has been going on with the Ravens since we last talked?
So, yeah, the Jamal Adams and the Ravens. I don't understand the fan base why they want Jamal Adams. I mean, he's a top safety in the league, and that's fine. But I always say to the guys that watch me, say like, okay, we have all these players we have to pay. I went through them earlier. If you get Jamal Adams, who you gonna let go? Because Jamal Adams is not coming to be cheap, right? He's coming to be one of the top safety plays based in the year. Now, next year, in theory, we can cut ET and we can roll a guy like Jamal Adams. I don't know. I mean, I think Jamal Adams is a hell of a box safety in a good, real good free safety. And our box safety is not Jamal Adams, but it's good enough. If anything, if I want to upgrade in the future, will be when ET's not here, another free safety. And in Ravens land, people are. I'm sorry.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
If you had Jamal Adams on that defense last year, do you beat the Titans? Somebody
I'm
who's
not, I'm not sure because the problem was, oh my God, I'm blanking. Henry was getting to the second level too quick. And when this dude goes to the second level on that running force, Jamal Adams ain't tackling him.
I don't know. Jamal Adams is probably the best guy in that situation.
Yeah. You know who he missed in that game? CJ Mosley. Because CJ Mosley is a big linebacker, thumping linebacker. He could have probably, if not stop him, slow him down.
So I'm saying like part of the appeal to Jamal Adams, kind of the similar appeal I've expressed for the Browns to go out and get him. You have a little bit of an experience deficiency at linebacker.
Yeah, true.
There's only one guy available that is a difference maker that can help you in that area. He's not a linebacker per se, but he plays in the box. Or two. This guy had like 6 sacks last year. So this is somebody who could dramatically help in that situation. Not only because you guys did have some issues with the dot, with the play caller, with the signal calling last year at the beginning of the season. So this is somebody who can help in that way. Also help against the run. And let's say theoretically Jamal Adams is enough to stop the Titans and help y'all get to a Super Bowl and win y'all a Super Bowl. is that not worth it?
I don't know. Anything is worth for a Super Bowl, right? But I don't think it's guaranteed. So what the Ravens did, they just bolstered their D-line, right? They went and got Calais Campbell. They got Wolf. I think right now in the Ravens nation is two things. People are super hyped for Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown has been posting videos left and right. And, he looked good last year for having a screw in his foot. He played well enough as a rookie. I thought he was not going to play as good as he played because, he's undersized and underweight. He bulked up this offseason. So now the other big thing in here, similar to Tony, is contracts. Stanley. Now they're talking about Stanley because I always said Stanley is waiting for Tunsil to get paid. Tunsil got big money. And Stanley's gonna get more than Tunsil. And after that, you have Mark Andrews in 2 years. Marlon Humphrey is going in 2 years. So you have a couple of players up in 2 years. So it's a big dynamic. Who we paying, who we keeping, who we letting go. The rumor is Matt Judon's probably not coming back after this year. So it's all that dynamic is what's happening. I think everybody's trying to wait to see if Stanley gets signed before the season starts. That's the hope.
So one thing that you skipped over, Sonny, there's been a lot of speculation about Marquise Hollywood Brown's cousin, Antonio Brown, coming to the Ravens. There's been a lot of signals towards that. I think the only other thing we've heard is the Seahawks appear to want him as well. Obviously, we know that you don't want that to happen because you don't want the locker room issues and stuff like that. If that were to happen, what would it look like? Is that something that you think is even remotely possible, or is it completely all speculation?
I think there's a possibility. So, somebody asked me the other day on a stream, and I said, I don't see them signing him now, but I could see them signing him after practices start to see how the young guys are playing. And if they think the young guys are behind by a good factor, then you bring them. Like the young guys are gonna have good corners to play against. So if they're playing well against those two against the corners, then you say, okay, you know what, we're good. My thing is, if you bring AB, whatever the team is, it has to be vet minimal, no guarantee money. I can cut you tomorrow. I don't want to play this game. The reason why I'm worried about it is because Antonio Brown, he is a likable guy, meaning players seem to like him, right? Lamar likes him right now. Hollywood likes him, and other Ravens players. So if we cut him because he's starting to not follow the rules, because Harbaugh is not a guy that is going to be like giving him leeway.
Right.
The question is then Hollywood Brown going to be like, well, what happened here, right? My cousin, he was playing, or if we were winning and we cut him, what happened? Like the Patriots kind of went through that last year when they cut him at the first thing that happened outside. He wasn't even in the locker room, and Tom Brady didn't like that, right? Tom Brady started openly like, well, I don't think we should have cut him. I think it should not happen. I don't think they should sign AB. But if they do, it's because, in my opinion, the rookies didn't look good in practices. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be a vet minimal, nothing guarantee. So, yeah, because the other thing is he would have to come in knowing, we might run more than we throw. So you ain't going to get a ton of targets.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, you touched on something very important there when you talk about these guys who are who are viewed as locker room disruptors. Like, I think the guy closest to AB as far as that level of reputation has been Terrell Owens throughout his career. And it's never because nobody doesn't like them. It's always because enough people can like them to where it can just light the whole thing on fire and set it on blaze. Now, the thing, I don't think this would make sense, honestly. Like, I get his cousins there. I don't know how close they are personally, but it wouldn't make a ton of sense for Antonio Brown to go there. No. Like, the better fit is clearly the Seahawks.
Yeah,
they run they throw the ball a ton. They really don't have a solution at the running game, so they're just going to rely on Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson is probably as similar of a type of quarterback to Big Ben as you can get. Somebody who improvises a lot, throws off platform, is going to allow you to do your own thing out of structure because he kind of needs you to do that. That's a perfect fit, honestly, for a guy like him. And then maybe even Josh Gordon can come back. They can have the most problematic and dysfunctional wide receiving room since that time that the Patriots had the guy who killed somebody, Robert Gronkowski, and then Kellen Winslow. And you don't know why Kellen Winslow is problematic? Google that. That's a whole thing. But yeah, that'd be one of the most problematic wide receiver rooms I've seen in a while. But I think that'd be a better fit. But yeah, if the Ravens did sign Antonio Brown, they would be the biggest boom or bust team instantly in the NFL, because if that thing goes right, they will go undefeated and win the Super Bowl, and nobody will challenge them, because Lamar Jackson with an option like Antonio Brown, if he's still good, is going to be unstoppable. But if that thing goes slightly left, ask Tony, they still ain't recovered from him.
Well, I think teams, like the Patriots last year, right? I know that offensively they didn't recover, right? But it wasn't like, they went from being a team that was going to be a playoff team.
He was there for a game, right? It wasn't like he was there for a while.
I just think look, AB's he's gonna crash and burn, and you move. You have to put yourself in. If the Ravens are going to do this, they have to put themselves in a situation where they know that if he goes, or if we bring him in, he can go at any point. Right? We're not building a roster around this guy.
Nope.
I think that's what you have to do, and I think the Ravens already have that. So, I think if they do bring him in, like you said, they already have. They can go with the roster as it exists today and be fine at wide receiver. They can add Antonio Brown and see what happens. Now, look, as someone who watched the Steelers with this guy forever, although I will say, look, the guy's a fantastic wide receiver. Now you start hearing the stories about what Tomlin and the coaching staff had to go through, especially later on in Antonio's career. It's just not the kind of thing. Look, we hear about like all the Antonio Brown with like the delivery drivers and all that stuff, but like even like during training camp, when this guy was constantly a headache for Tomlin and the coaches, when he didn't want to stay in the team facility, he had to go back to Pittsburgh at times, and the team has to cover for him for this. All of those little things, they add up to that this is time that Tomlin could be the coaching staff could be using on actual football business, and instead they're trying to manage Antonio Brown's life. You have to wonder how much of that plays a role in bringing him in Baltimore. Right? Does Baltimore want to have to deal with that stuff? Is that worth the quality of player that Antonio Brown is? The Steelers said yes for as long as they did, until finally he got to the point where they couldn't manage it anymore. The Patriots made that work for exactly a week. The Raiders made it work for a couple weeks in training camp, right? How long can Baltimore make that work, and do they even want to?
Yeah, and then once New England decides, like if New England decides like, hey, I don't know if we can have this dude around all like that, then I don't know why any other team would think that they can do it. Like in a team like Baltimore, like they have a good structure, they're a good organization. I don't think they would be ripped to the seams by Antonio Brown. They're too well built for that, but they are a young team. Mm-hmm. And a dude like Antonio Brown, not somebody you want to put on a younger team. You want to put that dude on a team with somebody like Takeo Spikes back in the day, a throwback name. Somebody you go, hey, you got a problem. You got to go talk to Takeo, and that's going to handle that situation. You want somebody with a locker room enforcer when you have Antonio Brown. Vontez perfect. That's why the Raiders thought they could do it, because they had Vontez, and they knew Vontez would say something. You know what I mean? But when you're the Ravens, it's like Lamar's not at that point in his I don't know, in his development.
The only guy that we have two guys that will definitely stop his nonsense. One will be Calais Campbell.
And Calais is up there.
ET is a no.
I don't know about
ET. Man,
ET's got some stuff going on too himself.
If you Antonio Brown, like, I don't know if I'm gonna sit here and get talked to.
One thing I will say though is we tend to focus on AB's time in Pittsburgh and also the Raiders as well. That was also a circus, but you got to remember, it wasn't anything that he actually did with the Patriots where it was in the locker room or anything that got him booked off of the team. It was what he did off the field that ended up being like the biggest headline that actually got him cut. So when the Patriots cut him, it was more so because they didn't want to deal with that press, with the negative thing with we're not going to go into details, but him with the young lady, those allegations and stuff like that were why he was cut. It had nothing to do with him like going off in the locker room or anything like that. So I think with that going through, it was just like, all right, this isn't worth dealing with. And they just kind of cut kind of washed their hands with that situation and didn't want to talk about it. Because I remember what exactly happened. They just kept asking Bill Belichick about it. And I remember like there was a press conference where they asked him about it again. And he was like, please don't ask me about it. And then he got up and walked out. And literally like 30 minutes after that, I got a notification that Antonio Brown was cut from the Patriots.
Right. But so, remember what happened in Oakland, like, a couple weeks before that, right? Antonio Brown didn't want to practice because he had a disagreement about what helmet he was going to wear, right?
Exactly.
So, I don't think he had. Look, Antonio hadn't changed, right? Maybe in New England he put on his best effort for a week, but how long is that really going to last?
Right. No, that's true. I think it is fair to say like we don't know. He could have easily imploded, like you said, but there were some people that felt like he didn't want to play for the Raiders, and he was using that as like a ploy to get away from them and stuff like that. With Tom Brady, I don't know. The only thing that made it weird for me was like Tom Brady wanted him to stay, and I don't know like what his reasoning was behind that. But I do think like you guys are all saying, it could definitely be an implosion, and I think the biggest thing that makes it an implosion isn't even like anything necessarily like off the field or anything, but I think it's the fact that the Ravens run the ball so much, and he comes from a system in Pittsburgh that just peppered him with targets. And I could see him like throwing a fit by not getting that many targets. And I don't think that he realizes that was a Pittsburgh thing. Like if you played in Cincinnati or you played in any other like offenses that don't just pepper wide receivers with targets, it's not going to be the same thing, because this is a guy that thinks that he still is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Even when he was going off on his like psychotic rants and stuff, he talked about Julio not even being in his league and having more receptions than him, and he set out last year. So this is a guy that has a massive ego that's going to have to be fed, and I think that is similar to what we kind of saw, like, and I think Quincy made a great example with T.O. We saw that with T.O. In Dallas. We saw that with T.O. in certain situations when he wasn't getting the ball enough, it became an issue. So I can see him yelling at Lamar and stuff on the sidelines. I can see that really getting ugly. But this is his last chance. I think if Antonio Brown, and you kind of have to commend what Drew Rosenhaus has been able to do by like getting rid of him initially and then working with him to get into all of these good graces. There's all this off the field drama that he had. A lot of those cases have been removed and stuff like that. And then he just met with Goodell. They're trying to do like an extreme makeover. And I thought AB was done. Like this would literally, whoever signs him, this is literally his last chance. Like he could still easily be a top 3 receiver in the NFL. And I think that's the reason we're even having this conversation. But if he messes this last one up, he is done. Like he's going to be playing. It's going to be like a Johnny Manziel type of meltdown where this guy is like playing in like leagues that we don't even know about in other areas.
Yeah. And then like with the whole Antonio Brown thing, while I have major questions about his ability to stay on the team, is just like, this is a dude who knows he's on his last shot and is virtually been begging to get back into the NFL for a while now. And 3 months ago, he called Juju Smith-Schuster on Twitter Boo-Boo Smith-Schuster. This does not sound like somebody who's committed to doing the small things in order to keep an NFL franchise happy. This sounds like a dude who's just going to pop off on Twitter every once in a while. And at this point in his situation, he don't really got that luxury. And I think ultimately that's going to be what's going to keep him out the league.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I've heard. I think Ocho Cinco, believe it or not, tweeted the other day, AB to the Texans. So we'll see if that actually happens. That was kind of crazy. But going back to the Bengals, some craziness has kind of happened recently because it came out today that Trey Waynes has still not officially signed his actual contract with the Bengals, and he's starting to complain about it. He's kind of been vocal about it. His agent has told him not to start working out or anything like that. And apparently they have not formalized things, and the Bengals are waiting until things formalize with COVID going on right now so that he can take a physical with the actual team's doctors. So until he does that, they're not willing to sign that. My personal thoughts on this, a lot of Bengals fans actually were not big on the Trey Waynes signing. They really just looked at him as like a slight upgrade over Drake Kirkpatrick. And Bengals fans, if you know them, we do not think Drake Kirkpatrick is good at all. So a lot of us felt like the Trey Waynes deal was kind of an overpay. I was cool with it because it's like if he's your second corner and you're just upgrading Drake Kirkpatrick, who could not tackle anything, and this guy tackles very well, I'm good with that. But a lot of us now are looking like, okay, if this doesn't work out, we're kind of cool with kind of backing out of this deal and possibly bringing Denard or something like that back. I honestly think that it gets done, but I think that it's just a bad look right now on the Bengals because when it comes to other people's like perception of us doing business, it isn't a good one, and this doesn't make it better. So that's something that was notable. The other things that come to mind, we're hearing a lot of like lip service, kind of like Tony saying that Joe Burrow is just amazing. He's mastered the offense already, even though they haven't even thrown a ball or run any kind of scrimmages or anything together. But apparently they're like, oh, Joe Burrow's way ahead of schedule. He's so ahead of schedule. We had to hold him back from certain things. So on the Joe Burrow front,
same with Ben, man.
From this standpoint, it's just been a bunch of that. Outside of that, the big concern and focus has been on the Joe Mixon and the AJ Green deals. There's time running out on those, especially with how the Bengals are handling this Trey Wayne situation. Is that going to also apply to guys like Joe Mixon and AJ Green? At one point, they were saying it was sounding like the Joe Mixon deal was going to happen, and then that just really died down. Duke Tobin came out and said that they were committed to Joe. They want to do this and that. And then nothing really kind of materialized after it. And then you also had the report come out with Dalvin Cook saying that he's going to hold out, which I don't know how, because with the language of the new CBA, technically you can't hold out or you don't get the reward for holding out. You still have a year with the team again. So that's been, I think, at the forefront of Bengals fans' mind is this Joe Mixon deal going to happen? The AJ Green deal, a lot of people, I think, actually want that to happen more than the Joe Mixon deal to happen, but it's kind of a divide on people that want AJ to, just be a lifetime Bengal, because we've seen this story so many times where there was Andrew Whitworth, whether it was Willie Anderson, whether it was Chad Johnson, all of these guys. We never keep our best players. We never let them retire Bengals. And AJ Green, in my experience, I feel like we're honestly blessed to have AJ Green, given the perception of our franchise. Like a lot of former Bengal players that I talked to and stuff like that, they just were jaded. And AJ Green, I don't even know how he has somehow remained unbengalized, which is usually what we call people. That's what happened to Carson Palmer. He became Bengalized. It just seems like from that standpoint, I kind of do wish we were kind of like the Steelers, in which Tony says no matter what happens with Ben, they're going to pay him. Well, I feel like AJ Green, even though he hasn't won a championship or a playoff game or any of that, he deserves it just because he's just been a model player for this franchise. He's never complained, spoke out, or anything. He's always been a guy that's come and handled business. So I'm honestly starting to lose faith in that, because I think that we're kind of counting down here on the deadline for them to get a long-term deal done. And honestly, I think if they franchise him, which we already have, and he only plays 1 year, I think he's pretty much going the next year. I think that he's going to view that as disrespectful. Yeah. And, it is really going to suck, because he's going to go somewhere and definitely bounce back. So in terms of the Bengals, that's what we've been pretty much working through.
With AJ Green, he's on a franchise tag right now, right? They franchise tag
on a franchise tag.
They only have a week, I think, to work that, because Bud Dupree, same thing, and I think they only have a week to work that deal out.
After that, they cannot work a deal during the year.
Yeah, during the year, yeah, same thing.
Right.
It's interesting about Mixon, though, right? Because if they don't get a deal done with Mixon, I mean, he's gone after this year. I mean, it's not like they're going to re-sign him.
And it's been very weird, because it's been extremely weird, because technically we're not weak at running back, right? And that's no slight to Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon to me is a top 5, top 10, depending on who you talk to, running back in the NFL. But the issue is you have Giovanni Bernard, who's more than capable of stepping in. You drafted 2 running backs last year that kind of flew under the radar, but they really shouldn't have lasted as long as they did, in Trevion Williams. You also have Rodney Anderson, really, he went off in the preseason. We were super excited about him. And then in the last game, he tears an ACL. He's had knee injuries.
No, did he really?
Yeah, he tore it. So what happened was we got him, I think, in the 6th or 7th round, because he tore his knee. during college. He rehabbed and he was so far ahead of schedule. He jumped the gun and just jumped back in there. And then the second game after he had went off, he ended up tweaking his knee again. So he's supposedly back healthy, but that's his issue. But he looked every bit, and I don't mean to take anything away from Joe Mixon, but he looked every bit as good as Joe Mixon in those preseason games. And if you know anything about him, he actually played with Joe Mixon in college. So he was a guy that was pretty good. And then we also have, if I'm not mistaken, we also have a guy from the CFL that we just signed as well, and Jaquez Patrick, who going back, and I actually know him just from living in Tallahassee and actually meeting him when he was at Florida State. He was a 5-star recruit, so he's no slouch either. So not saying that he's going to be Joe Mixon out there, but this is a running back room that has more than capable bodies to fill in for Joe Mixon as a committee if something were to happen. So that makes it interesting because initially when it came out that Joe Mixon was going to hold out, they signed Jaquez Patrick, and it was kind of weird because it was like, all right, is that like a passive aggressive kind of shot at Joe Mixon that we're just going to keep adding to this running back room anyway? So that we'll have to see. The other thing that's very interesting is from talking to Bengals players, Joe Mixon is the leader of the Bengals team. So that's what makes this very difficult because they said when the chips were down and things weren't going good, Joe Mixon was the guy that was going to every single player and making sure that they weren't giving up and trying their hardest. So that's the only thing that makes it somewhat difficult is we've always had this collection of guys and no one's been really the alpha male to stand up and be the leader. That was never Andy Dalton. That's not AJ Green. That's not his style. He's a very quiet person. He leads by example. Geno Atkins, same way. He doesn't even do interviews. Like Geno Atkins doesn't talk to anyone. So you have a lot of these personalities where they're amazing players, but you don't really have those alpha dog leaders and stuff like that. And Joe Mixon apparently is supposed to be that guy. So we'll have to see what happens.
Definitely, man.
But with that being said, this has been the AFC North Talk. Thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely be sure to subscribe. Definitely, I'll do a little roundtable to let everyone know where you can follow their stuff. But stay tuned. It's the off season, so obviously there's a lot of slow news and stuff like that. So you guys haven't heard from us because there hasn't been a lot going on. But periodically, every now and then, we will pop up with these shows. And I think definitely with the preseason being canceled, that's going to give us even less material to talk about. But just stay tuned and make sure that you're subscribed and that you get the alerts and stuff like that. Because when we do go on, you will be able to catch the show. But we'll start things off with Sonny. We'll let Tony go, Quincy, and then I'll wrap with where you can find my stuff.
So you can find me SCG Sport everywhere: the Twitter, Facebook, IG, YouTube. SCG Sport, like you see, are there. I do Tuesday live stream, so tomorrow where I take callers. So yeah.
Tony.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Steeler Country. You can find me on Locked On Steelers. I do a weekly spot on there on Tuesdays. Tony Tuesdays there. Making a lot of friends in chat today. I got to say.
I know.
Making a lot of friends in chat today. And then what else? That's it. You find me here. This is my new gig. I don't have a show anymore. I just do this. So AFC North Talk. Hit that subscribe button. Love you, chat.
Good. All right. And Quincy.
Yeah. As I try to just mind wipe what I just saw in the chat, I'll tell you guys where to find me. You can find me on Twitter at Quinn_C. You know what? Some of you don't need to find me. You can also find me on youtube.com/Quincy Carrier. I talk football, all that. Ace, wrap it up, man.
All right, man. I am Ace Boogie of New Stripe City and of the AFC North Talk. You can find me on YouTube at New Stripe City. You can also find me on Twitter at New Stripe City and Instagram. And this has been the AFC North Talk, and we will catch you guys later.
Peace.
Tony, do you know that guy? What the fuck?